Hello and welcome to the 5 Minute Film Club. Now before I start talking about this week's film, I'm actually just going to read its premise to you and then I'll read it for you. They say behind every great man there is a woman, but in this case it's ridiculous. When rich, eccentric Edwina Cutwater died, a crazy guru tried to transport her soul into the body of a beautiful young woman. But the guru goofed, and Edwina's soul has accidentally taken over the entire right side of her lawyer, Roger Cobb. He still controls what's left. Now Edwina and Roger are living together in the same body. When I picked this film, I hadn't actually heard of this one at all, and when I read that, I was surprised that it was in the book of 501 must-see movies. Reading that, which the studios actually put on the poster, I didn't know whether I actually wanted to watch it or not. But now, having read that and seen the film, it kind of renders the first 20 minutes completely mute. And all the stuff with Steve Martin as Roger Cobb, you know, they show him being a great jazz musician, a lousy lawyer, and not a very committed boyfriend, and it's all just fluff. 20 minutes of fluff. And the same goes for when Lily Tomlin's character arrives, and even though she's slightly more interesting than Steve Martin, again, all that we're really waiting for is when her soul accidentally spills into Steve Martin's. But when eventually this transmigration of the soul happens, the film really does start to kick it up a notch and starts becoming very funny, silly, and also quite affecting. Directed by Carl Reiner, who in the 1950s and 60s was one of the hardest working entertainers on American television. And then, later on, he made the move to feature films, mainly working with Steve Martin. All of Me would be their last in a string of 4 films together. And it's great seeing Steve Martin at the height of his career, really in a part that suits him, and obviously working with a crew that he feels very relaxed with. And so when this absurd scenario happens and Edwina Cutwater's soul is accidentally split down into Roger Cobb's, Steve Martin can really let rip. And in fact, one of the few videos on YouTube about this film, I mean, there is no reviews, this is the first, is the scene of Steve Martin at wrestling with himself across the street. And it's a wonderful piece of slapstick and very Chaplin-esque. And when you see Steve Martin in a film like this, it makes you so sad because his comedy really was time-bound between the late 1970s and pretty much the whole of the 1980s. But now when you scroll through on IMDb his recent escapades, is it any wonder that he has taken a step back from acting and just relaxed with his banjo? Aside from Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin, for me, was a revelation. I haven't actually seen her in that much, and so I really didn't know what to expect. And knowing that she was playing this part that almost dies within the first 15 minutes of the film, you think, well, where does she go? But actually in that short amount of setup time, Lily Tomlin really works with the character. So actually when she eventually goes into Steve Martin, we can still feel her presence. And actually she doesn't totally disappear from the film. Whenever Steve Martin looks in a mirror, it's her reflection that he sees. And this leads to some great comedy moments, much akin to the stuff in Duck Soup by Marx Brothers, including one bit that's in a male toilet that is full of silliness. Also, Lily Tomlin seems to bring out the best in Steve Martin's straight acting as well. And there are moments later on when the climax is building that I felt very, very much involved in how this whole scenario was going to play out. And I think that's down to Lily Tomlin's brilliant performance and presence in this film. But aside from those two, this film also has a great supporting cast, including Victoria Tennant, who would later, from this film, go on to marry Steve Martin. And she gives a wonderfully English villainous performance as Terry Hoskins, who's trying to trick Edwina into giving all of her money to her. And then there's also Richard Libertini, who's brilliant as the bumbling guru, and whose performance wouldn't feel out of place in any number of Mel Brooks films. As the film went along, I found myself, as the director intended, completely buying into this bizarre setup and also falling for the characters of Roger and Edwina. I mean, it is the classic odd couple routine but it all takes place inside of one body. Hello, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to do all the things down here, wherever I decide to put them in the edit. Hope you enjoyed the review. Next week we will be looking at, and I have the book here, okay, we will be looking at... Way! Yeah, I am quite excited about that. Next week we're looking at one of my favourite films, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Yeah, I'm going to have some fun with this one. Don't know when it'll be up, hopefully next week sometime. See you again. Bye bye.